Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are in Nigeria. Most of them are talking about the coronavirus, and that is the biggest headache of the world right now. And I have with me in the studio a lawyer and public affairs analyst, Jide Ologun, to help us make sense of some of the headlines across Nigeria. Jide, good morning.
Welcome.
Nice to see you.
I like the social distance.
Yeah, the social distance. We're practicing it in every sense of it, and those are the #1 safety measures we have to put in place besides a washing of hands as it is recommended. Anyway, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the Daily Times this morning. Daily Times says the world at war as COVID-19 kills 18,000. Infected new cases now 395,647 as death toll rises. Abba Kyari, Bauchi governor, 3 villa staff test positive. And countries, companies in lockdown as race to find cure hearts up. All right, that's the Daily Times. Blueprint is next now, and it says COVID-19, anxiety over Osinbajo, Kyari, Bala status. 42 cases confirmed. Lagos, Kaduna, Ondo market shut. It's accelerating. WHO is saying this. And reps pass economic stimulus bill. And National Assembly shuts down. Nigeria, others risk $65 billion oil revenue loss. And come clean on villa status, PDP tells Presidency. All right, that's what you see on the blueprint. Daily Trust is next now, and it says, before testing positive for COVID-19, Kyari mingled with governors, ministers, and others. His engagement in 10 days. You can get a copy in there. When you open you will see the details of all of that. Osinbajo in self-isolation, that's the vice president, plan to isolate key functionaries underway. Okay, we understand the presidential task force is working hard to tackle that, to ensure that members of the first, second, and third families and all of the people at that level are safe. The Nation newspaper is the next now. COVID-19. Buhari's chief of staff, Kyari, governor, positive. Buhari tests negative. Osinbajo in isolation. My health okay, says Garba Shehu. And confirmed cases now 44, says NCDC. Lagos orders stores and markets to close. And Edo, Osun, Ondo rivers shut markets as well. You find all that on the front page of the Nation newspaper. The Vanguard is next now and is focusing on the coronavirus as well. Widespread fears. Kyari, Bauchi governor test positive. The cases now 44 as NCDC confirms new cases in Lagos, Ogun, Bauchi, Abuja. Presidential task force inspects Aso Rock. Jack Ma's test kits arrive. And why Aisha Buhari shut office for 2 weeks. PDP urges Buhari to speak on villa status. Osinbajo conducts meetings via video conferencing. All right, you find that on the front page of the Vanguard. Okay, the Daily Sun is the last one we're seeing now as Nigeria's cases rise to 44 with 4 new ones. Panic as COVID-19 lands in Aso Rock. And President's top aide, 3 others test positive. Bauchi governor also, and Buhari tests negative. Osinbajo on self-isolation, and reps seek conversion of federal colleges, hostels to isolation centers. Global cases soared to 395,000 cases. You find all that on the front page of the Daily Sun. All right, Jide, the lockdown is becoming real by the day as more states also get on board with the reality of the need to lock down, shutting down markets and public places, malls, and all of that. Lagos is taking that lead, and other states are also following. Kaduna has done the same thing. What do you make of that? Some even said this should have come even before now.
Exactly. I recall that last week when we were discussing this, the government was still considering, locking down our borders to the inflow of cases. And thank God that within 24 hours, that was carried out. Even with that, we have cases already here. And as at yesterday, we had 44 cases, 42 active, and 2 discharged and 1 death. And from the reports we are getting now, even in Aso Villa, the chief of staff is, paraded to have tested positive. Even though the president tested negative, I may suspect that he must have been taken aside for further check, because we have a high flow of mingling at that level.
Yeah,
and
even between the chief of staff and the president
exactly
himself.
And we have the case also of the governor of Bauchi State, and we have a lot of cases now, and the fear is that this may spread further, and that is why the government is trying to see how internally we can prevent that widespread of COVID-19.
But what do you make of the level of compliance? Because the point is, last Sunday, the government was saying that any church or any public gathering that is more than 50 should not be allowed. But some churches we saw, they went to church and they were having a good time in church. And when, in fact, one of our cameramen and reporter was assaulted by a church.
In change management, there are about 4 stages. You talk about denial, you talk about resistance, you talk about evaluation, then you talk about acceptance and commitment. So you expect that will also happen here, because even as at now, some still do not believe that COVID-19 is in town. And of course, when you isolate Lagos State and Ogun State, we had over 70% compliance, really. In our church, we had to comply. We had our services at house fellowship centers, and we ensured that we didn't exceed the number stipulated. And it's just wise that you do it. And scripturally speaking, if you look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, it says there is time for everything and a season for every purpose. So it is not a permanent thing. And I think for those who did not comply, now that they know this case is a serious case, they should be wise enough to take all preventive measures possible.
Thank you very much, Jide Ologun, for your time on the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
God bless Nigeria.
Right.
It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio a lawyer, Jide Ologun. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
You're welcome.
All right, let's head straight to the papers. And all the papers are focusing on the COVID-19 pandemic. I begin with the Daily Times. The world at war as COVID-19 kills 18,000. Infected new cases now 395,647 as death toll rises. Abba Kyari, Bauchi Governor, 3 Villa staff test positive. Countries, companies in lockdown as race to find cure hots up. To the blueprint now, COVID-19, anxiety over Oshibajo, Kyari, Bala's status, 42 cases confirmed. Lagos, Kaduna, Ondo market shut. It's accelerating, WHO. Reps pass economic stimulus bill, National Assembly shuts down. Nigeria, others risk $65 billion all revenue loss. Come clean on Villa status, PDP tells Presidency. To the Daily Trust now. Before testing positive for COVID-19, Kyari mingled with governors, ministers, others. His engagements in 10 days. Oshibajo in self-isolation, plan to isolate key functionaries on the way. To the Nation newspaper now. COVID-19, Buhari's COS, Kyari governor positive. Buhari test negative, Oshibajo in isolation. My health okay, says Garba Shehu. Confirmed cases now 46. Initially there were 44 here, but it's now risen to 46, says NCDC. Lagos orders stores, markets closed. Edo, Osun, Ondo, Rivers shut markets. To the Vanguard newspaper, coronavirus widespread fear as Kyari Bauchi governor test positive. Cases now 44, but now it's risen to 46 as at this morning. NCDC confirms new cases in Lagos, Ogun, Bauchi, Abuja. The new cases are in Lagos and Ondo. Presidential Task Force Inspector Aso Rock, Jack Ma's test kits arrive. Why Aisha Buhari shut office for 2 weeks? PDP urges Buhari to speak on Villa status. Oshibajo conducts meetings via video conferencing. And finally, to the Daily Sun now. As Nigeria's cases rise with 4 new ones, well, 2 this morning, making it 6, panic as COVID-19 lands in Aso Rock. President's top aide, 3 others test positive. Bauchi governor also. Buhari tests negative. Oshibajo on self-isolation. Rep seek conversion of federal colleges' hostels to isolation centers. Global cases soar to 395,635. Right. So the new figures now in Lagos is that cases have risen to 46 in Nigeria. 1 new case in Lagos, and I think the other is in Ondo. And some have said that the next few weeks will be critical for the government, especially decision-making. We see that some states across the country have said they are shutting markets. Lagos, one of them. And Lagos intends to close the markets for 1 week, but left it open to those selling foods. And we see that restaurants will be serving in takeaways. I wonder how effective you see this will be, because the intention of government is to curtail the spread.
By and large, it should be effective because you prevent interactions that can bring the infection closer to the people, because it is highly infectious, and that is if we implement these policies effectively. But from what I have seen in Lagos, I think even beyond the directives of the government, people are trying to, stay away from trouble, because obviously the other challenge is that do we have the facilities to contain this crisis? Because right now it has not even become an epidemic, because we've only recorded 1 death. So should any evil break out in court, can we contain it? And that is why, apart from praying to God to help us and prevent this crisis, we also need to be careful. So if some specified markets are to be shut down and some regulations put in place, why not? And we are already observing some. I was somewhere in GRA Keja yesterday to buy bread. We had to queue, keep the social distance, and there were a few loaves of bread even available. I'm sure some left without having to buy. So you can see people now embarking on panic buying. Another issue is that even if we are going to leave some markets open, what about the supply chain to the market? Because this is obviously affecting a lot of things, movement from one location to the other, also compounded by the issues we have on ground already. So it's going to be a huge challenge for the government handling what is in town now.
But some are calling for a total lockdown with the way the cases are rising.
Is it possible to have a total lockdown in a society? We have a society that is already economically viable. We have about 100 million Nigerians within the poverty bracket. There are many Nigerians who cannot afford to stay at home. They earn wages. They live on daily earnings.
But
so what do they do? And some
many
will take that
organizations
risk.
are shut down at this point.
But they will still find a way of making ends meet, like we say. So I think by and large, we will come out of COVID-19 triumphantly. And I hope better, because this is a challenge now to the governance system we have. There should be emphasis on welfare. For example, we're talking about isolation centers, and we have few. But there are houses around Nigeria owned by unknown owners in courts that are not occupied. You drive between the airport and Abuja City, you find them. There are infrastructures that have been abandoned. This is just an external shock that is testing us as a people. And there's a wise saying that distance tests the strength of a horse. So we need to look inwards and see what we can do, particularly when even the higher manchi are involved. Right now, India has the biggest quarantine profile in world history. About 1.3 billion people being quarantined. You see, do we have these facilities, the respirators?
But we see some countries collaborating with private hospitals, and we also see them recalling those who are even retired. Perhaps those are measures
Nigeria is planning to do that. Yeah. But I just mentioned our governance system now. At a point, a minister told us that we have more than enough doctors, and that doctors who wanted to travel abroad could go abroad. But here now we are confronted with the reality. You see, it may even surprise you that you have to mobilize facilities from some hospitals, probably to Aso Villa, to handle the high and mighty. And these are issues that Nigerians have been complaining about. Even countries that are more advanced than us in terms of facilities are groaning now. The president of Italy is almost out of his senses. You see, even in New York, I think New York needs about 400,000 respirators. And I think only about, I don't know, some that were available. So the world is in a serious state of testing what is on ground. So for me, this is a sober moment for Nigeria, that if our strength of governance is tested, can we stand? It's like two houses now, one built on sand and one built on rock. But it appears right now that we are holding strongly to our faith. And we keep praying to God that we don't have a pandemic in Nigeria. It will be a serious case, but we pray it doesn't happen. And that is why we must take every measure, not just at the preventive level, but even at the management of the cases. And Lagos State has proved to the world that we can manage some of those cases, because some of the suspect index cases have been discharged from the hospital, yes, and we are having some good reports, and we just pray.
But the concern for Lagos State is contact tracing, because we see that a lot of persons came in even afterwards that we had the index case, and it's been a challenge, which is also a concern for a lot of Nigerians.
It goes back to our system. You see, the wise man says, you dig a well before you are tested. If we have a profile of keeping records, of having data, we won't be in this crisis. We were going to New York and we had to check in from Abu Dhabi airport. And the US government and the border control must know the specific address you are going to. Even if you intend to move from there to other states in the US, they want to locate you. And we have these facilities. But if we don't take them seriously, they backfire someday. But I know that this COVID-19 is going to shake some things into the right positions, because
you are
right now
of that?
this a disease that is no respecter of religion.
That would happen, that this will reshape
definitely
a whole lot
the
of
whole
things?
world is shaking. In fact, we don't have the time to talk about the impact. Right now, the price of oil in the global market is coming to about $22.
Yes.
And if it crashes further, we may not even be able to produce again, because Nigeria is a high-cost producer, unlike Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And you know there is also a war going on between Russia and
yes,
Saudi Arabia,
yes,
flooding the market with excess crude oil. So can we survive? So I want us at this point, and that's my personal advocacy, that please, let's come together as a nation. We need to stand strong. We need to hold one another together. We need to benefit from the resources of God. Do you know that as we are trying to nurse the threat of COVID-19, about 47 Nigerian soldiers were killed by Boko Harams in Borno State? You see, so we need to get serious as a nation.
All right.
And this is the time to sit back and realize that except we come together as a nation and maximize the blessings of God, we may all be threatened, because, like I always say, the security of one, the welfare of one, is the security and welfare of all.
All right, we'll leave it at that point. Jide Ologun, thank you for speaking with us.
God bless Nigeria.
Let's head into the papers, see what the headlines are this morning across Nigeria. Most papers are certainly talking about the coronavirus that has ravaged most parts, or many parts, of the globe. I have with me in the studio lawyer Jide Ologun to help make sense of some of the headlines. Jide, good morning.
You're welcome.
Really nice to see you.
Thank you.
Great. Let's start with the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint says COVID-19, anxiety over Oshibajo, Kyari, Bala status. 42 cases confirmed. Lagos, Kaduna, Ondo market shut. It's accelerating. WHO is saying this. Reps pass economic stimulus bill. National Assembly shuts down. And Nigeria, others risk $65 billion oil revenue loss. And come clean on villa status, PDP tells Presidency. All right, now Daily Trust is the next one now. Before testing positive for COVID-19, Kyari mingled with governors, ministers, and others. His engagements in 10 days. Oshibajo in self-isolation and plan to isolate key functionaries on the way. All right, that's Daily Trust. Now, the Nation newspaper says COVID-19, Buhari's chief of staff, Kyari, governor, positive. Buhari test negative, Oshibajo in isolation. My health okay, says Garba Shehu. Confirmed cases now 44, but now it has risen to 46 in the last couple of hours. Says NCDC. Lagos orders stores, markets closed. And Edo, Osun, Ondo, Rivers shut markets. You find all that on the front page of the Nation newspaper. The Vanguard is next now. Coronavirus is the focus here. Widespread fear as Kyari Bauchi governor tests positive. Cases now 44, but certainly has risen to 46 as NCDC confirms new cases in Lagos, Ogun, Bauchi, Abuja, and even Osun State with the latest addition. Presidential Task Force inspects Aso Rock. Jack Ma's test kits arrive. And why Aisha Buhari short office for 2 weeks. The PDP urges Buhari to speak on villa status. And Oshibajo conducts meetings via video conferencing. All right. Now, Jide, all the papers today are talking about the chief of staff to the president who tested positive. From reports we hear he's been brought to Lagos for medical attention. Now, this tend to change the dynamics a little bit because this is very close to the president. Now, the chief of staff is very central to any government as far as he's the right-hand man of the president. How compromised do you think the presidency is as of now?
You know, there was a test conducted on our president and the result was negative. Yeah. But I believe that with the recent development, another check may be necessary. And like you insinuated, it has gone to the high and mighty level now. And on the report that he's been brought to Lagos for medical attention, that also pinpoints the complaints of the First Lady at a time that the Aso Villa Clinic was not equipped to function effectively, and how I wish the government would have paid attention to that advocacy and that the chief of staff be attended to in Abuja, because traveling itself also is another stress, particularly when you know that this virus is highly contagious. But we are people of faith, and personally, I do not want Nigeria on the list of the badly affected countries. So we keep praying as we match it with actions that will deliver us, that we don't fall flat victim of this COVID-19. So, and it's a lesson also that when we are called upon to upscale the infrastructural facilities in the country, is for the benefit of all, because it appears COVID-19 has come to level the ground now, because it's no respecter of religion or status or whatever.
Now, the point there is the chief of staff of the president, governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, is also positive to this. Now, if you go on social media and you listen to, feel the pulse of the people, comments, write-ups, perspectives, opinions of people on this issue with the chief of staff and the governor now, if you listen to them, many of them are talking about the issue of drawing attention to our health system, like you were saying. You remember, you recall that WHO has said that African countries should watch it because their health system are so weak, and they should watch it against COVID-19. Do you think this is really going to be a wake-up call?
It should be. Let me say that. It should be, because we've had experiences in the past that you expected we awaken the governance system. But I still believe personally that we have underlying issues that are holding us down. This regional sentimentalism, not wanting to develop the country as a composite structure. And that is why you started hearing about restructuring. The resources are given unto us to enjoy. Right now, if anybody is being moved from one part of the country to the other, you are breaking down the barriers of regionalism. There is a crisis now that is uniting us. All right, so, and when you look at, we're even talking about the health sector. In the case of the chief of staff, he was in Germany and Egypt to attend meetings relating to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, electricity. The first power installation in Nigeria was installed, I think, around 1898 in Broad Street in Lagos. And now we have not gotten it right. So these are issues that are bombarding us. And when we now come to the point of realizing that we are all vulnerable within the system, then we should start paying attention to our infrastructural development so that the lowly can benefit, the high and mighty can benefit.
Okay. Let me put you on hold a little bit. Now, despite the directive from the federal state governments for all schools in the country to shut down and proceed on compulsory holiday, some schools in Lagos State are yet to comply with the instruction. Now, our correspondent Abimbola Agbebi joins me now to bring us up to speed with this. Now, Abimbola, it's good to have you join me now. Can you bring us up to speed? It's going to be very surprising for anyone to hear that all schools are not yet complying with the directive.
Okay, I'll start this way, Mike. Okay, it's Wednesday, the 25th of March, and then schools across Lagos, as I speak, have remained under lock. Now, this is in line with the directive given by the Lagos State government, of course, which is part of the measures put in place by them to curb the spread of the virus. Now, earlier, we were at some schools in Lagos. We visited some public schools in Lagos just to know the level of compliance, and I can tell you that at the schools I visited earlier, the compliance is quite high. However, there was an allegation that two private schools in Lagos, we visited some public schools in Lagos just to know the level of compliance, and I can tell you that at the schools I visited earlier, the compliance is quite high. However, there was an allegation that two private schools in Koshope area of Lagos opened their school. We're told that their pupils were allowed to come in and write examination, and then we had to get on that quickly just to find out just how true the claims were. But when we got to the school, we found some persons in the school whom I assumed when I got there were the school officials, and when we accosted them and asked them questions, we discovered that the allegation was actually untrue, Mike. So if you ask me, across Lagos, for the places we have visited, compliance level is quite high.
All right. I wonder what you make. Now, the governor in his press briefing is saying certainly some markets and some other places will be shut down for a little while, or partially. What are Nigerians saying, or Lagosians, let me put it that way? What are they saying regarding this?
Yes, if you ask me, I think people are more aware of the danger of this virus and the need for them to stay safe at this time. Like when we were driving through the streets of Lagos, I discovered that the usual hustle and bustle that, you know, is peculiar to Lagos wasn't there this morning. The usual heavy traffic that is peculiar to Lagos. I mean, at this time of the day, we should have workers stuck in the traffic, trying to get out of the traffic to get to work, but that is not there. And then when I asked some residents that I saw walking on the road, they actually told me that they are happy with the decision taken by the Lagos State government, which of course they believe is geared towards ensuring that they are safe.
All right.
Mike.
Abimbola Agbebi, our correspondent there, feeling the pulse of Lagos. Thank you very much. Now, Jide, we have to leave you here now. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
God bless.